right, thank you everybody for joining us at the ATB NFL Live Show again this week. We're back again with Zach here and Tony as my co-host today. Hopefully that's going to be the case moving forward as well. But just to get started off, a lot of news obviously going on in the NFL right now. This week's slate of games, a little bit interesting, not a ton of high-profile matchups, honestly, but we're going to dive into all those games. First thing we're going to do, though, I do want to start by just talking about some of the big news in the NFL right now, and then we're going to get into a bit of a recap on a surprisingly high-scoring Thursday night game as well, something I didn't expect to see after the past couple weeks. The first thing we want to talk about is definitely going to be talking about the quarterbacks returning. The main ones, we have Dak coming back from injury after Dallas was able to keep things going with him, surprisingly. I know we didn't expect that when that happened week one. And Tua coming back is Zach, with his Dolphins hat on, Dolphins jersey. I'm sure he's excited for that. Me, not as much, but we'll get into that later. But what do you guys think about Dak being back? Do you think this really makes them true contenders this year, especially with how well they played without him? And then also with Tua, do you think that he's going to be able to get this offense going again? We'll start with Tony here.
Yeah. So for the Cowboys, I said it last week, but I was definitely not respecting them enough early in the season. They weathered the storm with Cooper Rush, and now Dak is a significant improvement. Their offense has the ability to match their defense right now, and that would put them in that Super Bowl contender tier. I think the biggest question, and I'm really excited to see the answer to it today against a very weak Detroit Lions defense, who has allowed the most points in the league despite being on bye last week, is that are they going to do the thing that they've been doing where when Dak is in, they say, okay, we have a really good quarterback. We don't have to do the easy stuff anymore. We don't have to design the easy layups to CeeDee Lamb in space, all of the motion. With Dak, he's able to figure it out, so we can just put him out there, have him read the defense, have him find the right guy and hit it. And that makes life hard on a quarterback. They've been making stuff really easy on Cooper Rush. He hasn't been performing great, but they've been making it easy. If they keep that level of difficulty at a lower level for Dak than they have in the past, then we're going to see this offense go to the moon, match the defense, and they're going to start blowing teams out. It's all going to come down to how Kellen Moore and Mike McCarthy, not McDaniel, the bad Mike.
The bad Mike.
It all depends on how they approach it from that offensive standpoint. If they're going to continue hitting the layups, then this offense is going to go to the freaking moon. On the Dolphins side, it's back. The Dolphins offense is back. They've been racking up yards with Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill while Tua has been out in his concussion recovery, but it hasn't been the cool Mike McDaniel designed stuff. It has been very dump it off short and let the guys run. And that works. It racks up yards, but we're going to see the offense get back to that level that we saw earlier in the season, where now the right quarterback for the system is in there, and Tua is able to hit those better shots downfield. He's able to really open up the playbook to run a lot more of that exotic stuff, and just it's going to be a better offensive output. And we're going to see the Dolphins, they've been in a mini slump ever since that kind of all that stuff with Tua happened. I think we're going to see them get right in against a weaker defense and look more like themselves.
What do you think, Zach?
Yeah. So I guess we'll start with the Dolphins. Tua being back.
I wonder why.
Yeah, well, I mean, just to pick up where Tony left off. I mean, they haven't crossed 20 points since he's been out. And while like the point totals are low, I think the important thing for them to know and for Miami to know is that the defense has kept them in games. Yes, you lost to the Jets 40-17. However, that game was 19-17 in the fourth quarter with 12 minutes remaining on a missed field goal from Miami that would have put them up 20-19. At the end of last week, still had a chance to win the game against Minnesota. You still had a chance to win the game against Cincinnati. The good thing is with Tua coming back to the offense, he can start to move the ball. As Tony said, they've been able to move the ball, but not consistently. And that was the one thing is even if Tua had a couple of drives every game where he would come out and it'd be like, oh, he would like missed a couple of passes here and there, missed a couple plays. Wasn't the best overall drive. He come out the next drive like nothing even happened. Skylar Thompson and Teddy Bridgewater, I cannot say the same. They looked very, very much rattled, and rightfully so, because they are not who is built for that system. As far as Dallas, this is going to be big. And I think the bigger thing for Dak Prescott in we're now in week 7. Oh my Lord, week 7.
Yeah,
And I think the biggest difference for Dak Prescott in week 7 as opposed to week 1 is how much better the running game is at this point. Yes, Dallas lost to Philadelphia, as I think many expected, because Philadelphia is in that upper echelon. And I think the only team at this point in the NFC that I'm really, really scared of, depending on what happens with San Francisco, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But Dak is gonna do much better and thrive better with Ezekiel Elliott actually being able to contribute, Tony Pollard coming to his own and actually starting to look like the better of the two, which at this point I think he is.
I've said that for like 2 years, but that's
Yes, definitely. Ezekiel Elliott, it's they kind of did the opposite this time, and they said, the Dez and DeMarco Murray thing didn't work out the last time, so what if we invest in the running back this time and not the wide receiver? And then that just went. The exact same thing happened. It's just like, oh man, maybe we should have kept Amari Cooper. I don't know. But yeah, so Dak getting back is going to be massive for them. It's going to be important. They need Dak because the offense was not doing anything. They weren't turning the ball over until last week. They weren't having dumb plays, negative plays. They were keeping the status quo, but they weren't doing anything groundbreaking. They weren't doing anything revolutionary. Like we weren't watching Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes on the field. Like, they need Dak back. They have invested so much money in Dak. He will play. And the whole like quote unquote controversy thing, it's literally just because it's Dallas. Like, no, there was never any intentions of Cooper Rush starting once Dak was healthy, because there is too much money the Dallas Cowboys have invested in Dak Prescott.
Yeah, I have a hard time disagreeing with you guys with any of that. I will say that the two main things with we'll start with Tua. I'm not sure what's going on there. Sorry, guys. Anyway. So with Tua, I'll start with him, like, mostly because I have to deal with him this week as a Steelers fan. The thing I noticed, the biggest difference with him so far this year is definitely confidence, right? Like, whenever you saw him early in the season, he looked confident, not only knowing where to throw the ball, but like you said, whenever he did make mistakes, when things did happen that were negative. I mean, you just look at the Ravens game, right? I mean, they were down so much at that point. He just was still flinging it out there. It didn't matter to him at all. He was still trying to make big plays because he knew, like, what's worse that's going to happen? We're going to lose by another touchdown. Like, what's the point, right? He has that mentality now, and I think it's because he's been instilled with confidence by the coaching staff. He's confident in his receivers, as he should be. I mean, you look at them top 5 in yards, even with him missing half the season basically so far. He just has to keep playing the way he was prior to getting hurt, and if he can do that, I don't see this offense being anything worse than top 10-ish offense, honestly. Especially if the run game can get going more with Mostert and Edmonds, hopefully can get some stuff going. Not only because he's on my fantasy team, by the way, but because of the fact I think he's just they spent some money on him. You got to get him going. With Dak, the controversy thing was funny immediately because we all knew it was going to happen because, like, they were winning. It's like, oh, he's winning. It's like, first of all,
who knows?
Yeah, Cooper Rush is not, the reason you're winning. No, he might be not keeping you from winning, but he's not winning you the games. And we saw what happened.
Not an Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick.
No, it's very, very different. we saw last week what happened whenever the other offense put any amount of pressure on Rush and the Dallas offense. They couldn't get it done because Philly's very good defense, but more importantly, he's not going to make the bigger plays that Prescott can make, that he is being paid to make. So they need to get that out of him when he comes back. And I think they will to a certain extent. I don't know if they'll be significantly better than they would have been in terms of just record. I think that they were going 4-1 without him is going to be hard to replicate the rest of the year, but they're going to be more competitive in the bigger games, I think, is more important. So we'll see how that goes. But the other big news, of course, we're going to see a little bit of him today, most likely from all reports. But Christian McCaffrey traded from the Panthers to the 49ers for a collection of picks. I believe a second rounder, a third rounder for this year coming up, and I believe a fourth rounder next year. Is that right? Or is it 3 picks this year?
I think the fourth is this year.
So yeah, second, third, and fourth, and then I think a fifth next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
Right, that's what it was. So with that being the case, I have 2 questions for each of you on this trade. One, does this significantly change the 49ers' outlook for the rest of the year, assuming that McCaffrey is healthy for most, if not all, of the season? And 2, even if that's the case, is this just way too much to give up for really any running back, but especially one that has his injury history and is 5 years into his career now? We'll go to Tony first.
Okay.
All right. So the first question was, how does this change the outlook for the 49ers this season? I think the 49ers are one of the few teams where this change does actually matter. Normally I am very against, I'm not full running backs don't matter, but I am very to the tune of offensive line matters a whole hell of a lot more. Scheme matters way more. And offensive line and scheme in San Francisco is pretty darn good. So adding Christian McCaffrey to a creative offense with a bunch of versatile weapons like the 49ers have and Kyle Shanahan calling plays there, that matters. And what he's going to be able to do for that offense, not just taking the easy yards, not just getting yards that maybe Jeff Wilson couldn't, but his involvement in the pass game and Kyle Shanahan's ability to scheme around his involvement in the pass game is going to really make Jimmy Garoppolo's life easier, which is important because Jimmy Garoppolo is fairly limited as a quarterback. So if you can get him on like wheel routes or those little angle routes to the middle of the field, it's going to open things up and change things. For all the fantasy people out there, I'm a Brandon Ayuk owner. That's probably going to hurt him. But for the sake of the entire offense and the team's outlooks, it is an improvement. Now, the second question of was it worth it? I still firmly believe it was not. This is a team that has historically been terrible with asset management under Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch. Kyle Shanahan pounds the table for a running back. They trade up in the draft to get said running back, and then he gets cut the next season. It happened with, what was it, like Joe Williams, I think his name was, in the fourth round a few years back. It happened with Trey Sermon. This year they did it with Tyrion Davis-Price, who hasn't touched the field, and they brought in Tevin Coleman over him because they just trust Tevin Coleman more. They consistently misvalue young running backs, and I understand it. You have this insane scheme. You can turn anybody into a 1,000-yard rusher, but if you add an elite player to that, it's exponential, the gains. But when you have now spent over the course of 4 years, something like 8 to 10 day 2 draft picks, selling your future at the running back position of all positions, when you can turn Eli Mitchell, a 7th round pick, into a 1,000-yard rusher, the team, when it is hurt, is bad. And this is a team that is always hurt. You need those picks to build depth because otherwise, you are not going to survive when you have guys constantly hurt. We saw it against the Falcons last week. They got destroyed because their entire defense was hurt, and they don't have the depth because they don't have draft picks. And they're leaning on already injured guys like Jason Verrett because they've spent money elsewhere and spent assets elsewhere. So I think it's poor roster management on their part, but I do think it's going to be really cool to watch Christian McCaffrey in that offense.
Fair enough. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, so I was going to say this move is season changing for the 49ers if and there's a big qualifier here, if the defense gets healthy, because that's the biggest concern right now. Great, you added, we just watched the Falcons impose their will on your defense and you had nothing to stop them. Nothing against Atlanta has played great this year against the spread champions. It's wonderful. However, it's the Atlanta Falcons led by Marcus Mariota, and they put up what was it, 28? Something like
28,
that. Yeah. 28 points. 28 points with ease. Not even like a hard 28, with ease. Now, granted, San Francisco only scored 14, and Atlanta's defense is not the greatest. So that could have been one thing where they're sitting there and Kyle Shanahan's like, well, hey, yeah, I mean, we gave up 28 points, but look at our defense. How could we only score 14 against that? So I do think it's big. As far as value, I'm not a big running backs don't matter proponent. I'm a big fan of running backs. I do like running backs. However, I think it's important to put a couple guys in a different category. McCaffrey being one, Alvin Kamara being one, where just with the way that advanced statistics and stuff works and the way that coming out of the backfield as a receiver works, they don't get the benefit of receiving any of those advanced statistics because you don't know where a defensive back technically is or like who the person is supposed to be that's going to be guarding them on a route or when they're supposed to be coming out. If that's like just like the play broke down and the running back came out on a route and it was just an option. There's just too many variables of playing receiver out of the backfield that you can't accurately like staticize. I don't know if that's the right word. But you can't
word now.
Okay, you can't accurately staticize it, and like things get lost. Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey, and there's just like the two like very very pressing on my head right now because I mean they're very similar in the time they've been in the league. They epitomize the dual threat running back. Out, I can catch passes. They're going to get you 100 yards per game on the ground, through the air, total. It doesn't matter. They are going to get you 100 scrimmage yards, and they're going to be the main person. It's been so frustrating. I know we're talking about Christian McCaffrey, but that's like another thing. Like I don't know how the Saints haven't traded Alvin Kamara yet because they are wasting him. Like, please send him to somebody who will use him correctly, and that's what I'm hoping to see with Christian McCaffrey now. That he's in a system where, yes, you can say Kyle Shanahan has made it very evident that running backs don't matter. But when he gets his hands on a good one, that's what I want to see. That's going to be fun.
I think for me, like at the end of the day, yes, the trade is objectively bad value-wise. There's no really getting around that. You're giving up 4 total picks, 3 of which are going to be this year coming up in a year where you're probably going to have to reload in multiple positions. You don't know really the future quarterback because Lance is hurt and Garoppolo's not going to be any better than he is right now. There's a lot of things to consider with the asset management part of it. But if we're just looking at it from, man, is it going to be fun? The answer to that is almost 100% yes. Like, unless he were to get hurt again, which I'm definitely hoping he does not get hurt, that's going to be the worst case scenario for the Niners, but also just want to watch Christian McCaffrey play football. He is the kind of guy that can make an already unbelievable scheme for running backs transcend that next level even more, right? Because he can be used as a legitimate receiver. Him and Samuel in the backfield at the same time.
Oh my gosh!
Who gets the ball? Who runs a route? And who does it matter? Like literally, that's the type of stuff we're going to see from this offense. I imagine we'll probably see a little bit of it today. It just sounds like he's going to be at least in some red zone packages and stuff like that. Like the possibilities are kind of endless with an athlete like McCaffrey in this offense, right? Like the amount of things they're going to do with him, I hope are insane, and I hope that they use him the best of their ability. I'm sure they are, considering how much they gave up for him. But my ultimate question is like, does it actually make a difference in terms of their like Super Bowl hopes or anything like that? I still say no, because it's going to be so based on the quarterback play still, especially if you get into playoffs. You guys already talked about the defense has to get healthy. All that has to come into place. But if everything around that trade comes into place, he might be able to be the difference in, say, a playoff game in a big moment. You need a first down. You need a guy to get open and catch the ball, something like that. That might be where we see him show up and make the trade worth it if they can get at least, deep into the playoffs this year and still have the opportunity to reload for next year. But it's tough. It's going to be a tough ask. It really is. And I know the end of season is that strong outside of a couple teams, but it's going to be interesting to see if this actually works out in a couple years, but we'll be watching for that.
So interesting scenario. And I posed this in the group chat when this happened. He's only going to be there for like a year, right? Unless they find a way to get the end of the season, right? It won't be like a year after.
It is a deal with another 3 years on top
His
of
contract
it, but there's
does have
no
years
guaranteed
left.
money. So
exactly.
I assume with
Okay.
the leverage he has, he'll push for a new contract.
Okay. So here's my question. Depending on what happens with the Carolina Panthers this offseason, I don't think there's any bad blood there. And I really do believe that like he's from the understanding of like, hey, yeah, I get it. This had to happen. Like you had to do what's best for you. Do you think they come knocking back in the offseason and being like, hey, sorry, we got some picks for you though? What do you want? You want to come back?
That would be insane. But unless he really had a rough year and they wanted to offload him, then I don't see anybody like he's going to be on the Niners for at least a couple of years. Unless
I hope so, because I think one of the bigger things we're being robbed of is seeing him and Trey Lance together. Because I think that's who this move helps the most is Trey Lance. Give him a veteran mind in the backfield to be like, hey, I know we've got these other dudes who are a bit younger, but I've seen my time under the sun of the NFL. Well, let me help you out a bit. The other important
think it will
thing
help
to
him next
recognize
year.
with
Yeah.
this is outside of compensatory picks, the San Francisco 49ers have 3 draft picks starting in round 5 in the 2023 draft. Round 5 and 2 7th-round picks, one from Denver. So
Yeah,
like
we'll have to see what
they have
do.
2 of their own picks before
Mhm.
compensatory. That's nuts. That's like
Yeah.
worse than the Rams.
That's what my concern is ultimately with this, and I think that's what we're going to have to see how it plays out over the next couple of years as far as can they build depth through the draft still, even with the later round picks, because we've seen what happened with the Rams this year. They don't have an offensive
McVay
line.
sold his soul for that Lombardi.
Basically.
Is
And,
Shanahan
he
doing
got
the
it.
same?
He got it, so I mean, you can't really criticize him too
Exactly.
much, but you're right, Shanahan has to get it. But so let's just do a quick recap of the Saints-Cardinals game. We'll get into the games this week. So all I have to say about that game before I kick it off to you guys is thank goodness there was points. That's all I have to say about it to get kicked off. I was tired of watching Thursday night games where I was going to bet the under even if it was 20. Like I just didn't want to deal with it. And the fact that a lot of it came off of defensive big plays too is fun. You know, the 2 interception touchdowns for the Cardinals, which Andy Dalton, man, he was really making people believe him for like 2 or 3 weeks. And final stat line still pretty explosive looking, but it was pretty fake. So what do you guys think? We'll start with Zach here.
So I don't actually feel like he did anything to like make anything worse for himself. I still think he should be starting.
Well, I mean, when you look at the way Jameis is playing, it's pretty
exactly.
Pretty rough,
They have not had any offensive cohesion with Jameis Winston under center. They have had Alvin Kamara has become a viable fantasy option the past couple of weeks. He's getting his yards. I don't know what it is about, and I mean, it's just the fact they don't have Sean Payton. I mean, it's clear.
I think it's what's hurting a lot. Yeah.
I was incredibly angry watching that game because I had this beautiful parlay going where I had Saints first quarter winners, Saints first half winners, which was looking like it was a lock. Cardinals fourth quarter winners, and then Cardinals minus 2.5. And that was a 4-way parlay that would have hit had, back-to-back pick sixes within a minute of the end of the first half hadn't happened. But yeah, no, that was just ridiculous. But it was entertaining, and that's what was nice to see. I think we've gotten a few duds here the past couple of weeks. But when you really look at it, Sunday night football is not that much better off right now. Monday night football is not, I mean, we're about to watch the Dolphins and Steelers, which Shane, for you and I, that's fantastic because I don't know where you're from, but I never get to see the Dolphins unless they're on national television.
I live about an hour and a half outside of Pittsburgh. So
I live in Virginia. I don't get to see Miami play football on TV. I get to watch the Washington Commanders and Baltimore Ravens.
One of those are all right, but
it's all right. But I mean, I don't want to watch them.
No, you want to watch the Dolphins.
And then we're really going to all sit around a TV on Monday night and watch the Chicago Bears and New England Patriots. I need to go talk to some schedule makers. It's interesting to see what's happening, but what was good to see is the Cardinals are starting to come back. That offense is starting to look a little bit better with DeAndre Hopkins. That should be a problem, but at least they're better.
What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, I think so. To Zach's first point about Andy Dalton, Jameis Winston controversy, I get it. 2 pick sixes on back-to-back plays. That sucks. But are you really going to replace a guy because of pick sixes and replace him with Jameis Winston?
No, probably not.
The 30-30 guy.
Let's go eat some W's, baby.
Yeah, no. I keep Andy Dalton in there because when he's not throwing pick sixes, the offense hums. I think Chris Olave is turning into a stud before our very eyes. The days of Michael Thomas are pretty much over. It's the Chris Olave show. The Cardinals, it was good to see their defense actually doing things because they've invested a lot in that, quietly, maybe not even that quietly, given all the first round draft picks on these weird hybrid linebacker things. But they've invested so much, and it was good to see Isaiah Simmons get that pick six. That was cool. He just ran away from everybody. That's why you drafted him. Offensively, I still think they looked pretty bad. Like DeAndre Hopkins helped cover up a lot of that, but it's just they make it look so hard when before Cliff Kingsbury, Kyler made football look really easy. So I don't know if it's a Kyler problem. It definitely is partly a Kyler problem, but I think it's majority a Cliff Kingsbury problem. And we're not going to see the Cardinals really. I mean, they put up a lot of points, but again, 14 points off of turnovers. I don't think either of these teams matter this season. And I think I've said that every single Thursday night game. But until Cliff is gone and until the Saints, I don't even know what the hell they have to do, but I don't think either of these teams are going to matter in the long term.
Yeah, I would say that's probably the case. The big winner of that game, though, the Eagles, who continue to be undefeated and also have the Saints first round pick. Good for them. That's going to be super interesting. Everybody was thinking, they're going to be able to get a quarterback out of it. Now they probably don't need to. So they're just going to be like, we'll just take the best player available on a team that's already really good. Keep an eye out for that. So let's get breaking into the games this week. Let's take not too much time on some of these, especially. Just want to try to get everybody out and ready to watch the games. We'll start with Colts at the Titans here. What do you have for me, Zach? We'll start with you.
I have Indianapolis winning 28-23. They get both Nyheim Hines and Jonathan Taylor back this week. I think Jonathan Taylor puts the team on his back and avoids the sweep for them. I think Indianapolis is on the up right now. They had a rough start to the season, but they're 3-2-1, which is kind of surprising after what we saw to begin the season.
What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, so I'm going the other direction. I've got the Titans winning coming off of their bye 28-24. I think the Colts had a very high emotion game where they somehow beat the Jaguars last week where they shouldn't really have. It was super high scoring. Matt Ryan threw like 50 times. It was weird. And then circling back now to a team coming off a bye where Mike Vrabel has his guys ready. They're hungry. They know that the division is up for grabs now with the Jags struggling. And so they're just going to come out and it's going to be a running game because Jonathan Taylor is back, but Derrick Henry's back. And so 28-24, close game, fun game.
So with Indianapolis being 3-2-1, is there any way we could convince the NFL to have the outcome of their game be just considered go? You think we could probably do that? Like, that'd be a fun way to start the record for them. Anyway, but moving on, like with my score, I lean more to Tennessee, like you said, Tony. I feel like realistically, the Colts are playing better despite their weird start to their season, but I trust Tennessee coming off the bye more than I trust the Colts right now. I think Taylor will have a better game than he's had so far this season, but I think Henry and Tennessee ultimately beats them out. I just think they're a little bit better doing that type of offense right now. Maybe Matt Ryan could throw the ball over the place, but I think if you start doing that, they'll capitalize on that a few times. So I have them winning here. So let's move on to the Giants at Jacksonville. What do you got for me, Tony, this time?
Yeah, so I think this is a really fun game in where the Jags have been winning for a lot of their games but have a losing record, and the Giants have been losing for a lot of their games but have a very winning record. And we're going to see things kind of come back to normal. I expect Jacksonville to win a close game, 24-20, but I think they are more talented kind of all over the board. And at some point, the Giants, they have this magic right now, but it's not like they're playing great football. At some point, that's just going to end, and a better team will win. And I think Jacksonville gets back on track here.
All right, what do you think, Zach?
I think we touched on this last week. The Giants is a fantastic story. They're 5-1. New York is on top of the world right now. I don't think it's going to be a great day for New York in general today. And that you should be happy, Tony, because Buffalo's on a bye. That means they're not included in that statement. But I think Jacksonville is finally the buzzsaw the Giants and Giants fans needed to run into, and they lose this game. The Jacksonville Jaguars are the exact opposite of what I would say the Giants have been this year. Every game that they've won, they've dominated. Every game they've lost by one possession. They're 31-24 Jacksonville. It's gonna. I mean, it's only one touchdown, but they're gonna lose.
All right, so I actually have it going the opposite way for this game. I don't think the magic ends here today. I think that the Giants pull one out 21-18. Very close. I think they get to 6-1, and then I do think moving forward, you're going to start to see the wheels not fall off necessarily, but eventually teams are going to start to just play better against them. I think they're going to figure it out. I think Jacksonville's in a bit of a funk right now in general. I think they still need to figure some things out on offense. They're a much better team than they were last year. I think ultimately they finished the season relatively strong once they get things back on track a little bit. But I'm gonna have the Giants train rolling just at least one more week. We'll see about moving forward after that, but I think they can get it done. Moving on to Tampa Bay at Carolina. I feel like I know kind of where everybody's leaning on this one if I had to take a guess. But let's start with Tony on this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I actually turned down the opportunity to go to this game. I live here in Charlotte.
Yeah.
I have no interest in spending the Bills are on a bye this week, right? So I can like de-invest in football a little bit, build up some goodwill with my girlfriend.
Yeah, always good to do that, yeah.
I don't want to go spend my time watching this bloodbath. The Panthers are doing the right thing. They are stripping it down. Yeah. It is necessary, but it is ugly and it is not watchable. Yeah. And Tampa Bay, they need a get right game. So I have Tampa Bay winning 34-7. I don't think it's ever once going to look close. I don't know if PJ Walker is going to throw past the line of scrimmage. It's just not going to be a good time. Watch something else. Go pick apples. Spend time with your family. Don't watch this game.
Yeah, I like that, Tony. I think that I'm going to take that advice. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah, I got Tampa Bay winning 27-10. Look, Carolina's punted on the season. Steve Wilkes is going to try to salvage anything that he can to say if he wants to keep this job or parlay it into something different. I mean, look, at this point, and I think there's another thing I touched upon. Like the jobs that they get, like I would be sitting here like, I know it's an NFL job, but I'm sorry, I don't want to be the front man of Houston.
I'll go coach defense somewhere else.
Exactly. So, Tom Brady gets back on track. I just noticed that Tampa Bay, Tom Brady. I never put that together before. They get back on track, get some touchdowns in, 27-10, get in, get out. It's your run of the mill, really like top tier NFC South team versus the dregs of what's left.
Makes sense. I have Tampa Bay winning 28-14. I think that the Panthers somehow score 2 touchdowns, probably in weird fashion, is what I'm going to guess. Something stupid happens. But
I mean, arguably, I'm giving them more credence because I'm saying they'll score 3 times.
True. Yeah. Point being, I'm going to give, very comfortable lead for Tampa Bay on that game. They need a get right game, like you guys said, especially after whatever happened last week, which I will still take, but whatever. So moving on to Green Bay at Washington, another game that I feel is going to be very, very ugly because of where Green Bay is at right now and where right now Washington's at with Heineke now starting a quarterback right now. Granted, is that really that much of a downgrade from once? Probably not, but they've been ugly anyway. What do you got for me, Zach?
Okay, so the score should tell you guys exactly what I think. I have Green Bay winning 21-20. And I think there's a good chance that they could lose this game.
Yeah.
And if they lose this game, I think we are going to see the most unenthusiastic Aaron Rodgers for the rest of the season. And it's kind of going to put a little bit of a stink on the end of his career. Because didn't he already confirm that he's retiring after this season? Or was
he has 4 more years on his contract.
Oh,
so yeah.
Damn.
Well, he's on the first year of a 4-year extension, I believe. Yeah.
Okay. I thought I saw something that he was ready to. I mean,
he keeps saying that, but
reading body language. Look, Washington's secondary is bad, and if they can't figure something out against this secondary, and I think I said this last week too, and the week before that, if we're being completely honest, because they've lost 2 look, the fact that you've lost back-to-back games in New York, the city of New York football.
You didn't play the Bills.
And you didn't play the Bills. Exactly. And you didn't play the Bills.
That happens next week.
Yeah, right. Oh, Jesus.
Right. I mean, I 0-3 in the state of New York is definitely in question. Is definitely going to happen. Look, I don't know what's wrong. It can't just be that they're young, because I feel like Patrick Mahomes has kind of an equally as unproven, untalented. I think Aaron Rodgers is cooked. I watch him play on the weekends, and he looks like he does not care at all. I think he's done. I think he doesn't care. They win this game, but I would not be surprised in the slightest if somehow Taylor Heineke pulls this out. Speaking of Taylor Heineke, follow me at Zach Nur and go like and retweet my Taylor Heineke tweet that I just retweeted because it is golden. Thanos reference to the max, please.
Awesome. All right. Go ahead, Tony.
All right. Yeah. So I don't think it's going to be quite as close, but closer than maybe some expect. I have Green Bay winning 27-17, and I really wanted to make it closer, but I just can't see the Taylor Heineke offense getting there. But on the Green Bay side, everything Zach said is true. Aaron Rodgers just looks disinterested. He looks like he lost his guy who he could just throw a back shoulder to. They were always on the same page. It didn't take much thought. It was just like muscle motion. They were just like minds linked. And this year, it's a bunch of new guys. And so he's having to develop chemistry. He's having to put in hard work off or like outside of the games that I don't think he really cares about putting in at this point in his career. And so we're seeing the product on the field. We're seeing like miscommunications. We don't know if it's on him or if it's on the receiver. Maybe he's trying to throw the back shoulder because that's what Devontae did. And Romeo Doubs is a rookie. And he's like, I'm running the freaking play that Matt LaFleur called. Like, I don't know what the problem is, but Aaron Rodgers does not look himself. And this offense does struggle. They're getting Sammy Watkins back today. I don't know if that matters. It probably doesn't, but he's good for like one crazy game a year. Maybe that's this one. Yeah, overall, I think they're going to win by 10 points, but we're still going to have all the same questions about the Packers.
Yeah, so I do have Green Bay winning, but only 20-17. I think at this point, this offense is just kind of broken. Like so much, they ask so much of this running back duo to kind of do everything for them because the receivers are so just blah right now. And Rodgers, yeah, admittedly, he is not playing nearly as well as he probably should, even considering the situation. And I think a lot of it, like you said, so much of what makes him special is his ability to put the ball anywhere that he wants at any moment in time. And if the receivers aren't where he wants them to be, then the plays aren't getting made. And he does need to just, I think, understand, like, I just need to run the offense the way that LaFleur wants to run it. There's clearly some tension there. There's been conversations about, like, he doesn't like the way the offense is run. And LaFleur says, well, basically too bad. Like, and I understand, like, if you're LaFleur, you need to run the offense the way it's run because you don't have receivers that can do that stuff for Aaron right now. But Aaron clearly doesn't agree with that or thinks that they should still be able to do it. So until they figure that rift out or until they add somebody, which I will say if they lose this game, some receiver from another team will be on this football team next week. I don't know who it will be. There's been a lot of smoke about Chase Claypool. I actually wrote something for a Wisconsin site about that. That might
they might destroy the freaking cap situation and sign Odell and be like, hey, how much
whatever
do you want?
Whatever it ends up being. But like, if they lose this game, somebody is going to be on this team that isn't right now. I don't know who that's going to end up being, but that's pretty much what I think is going to happen especially if they don't win this game, and maybe even if they don't win it easily. So
the ghost of Randall Cobb is not coming back to save.
Yeah, he'll be back, but not anytime soon, unfortunately. So moving on to a game that I think is going to get ugly and then look slightly better, and then that's going to be about it. So we got Detroit at Dallas in Dak's return. Oh, Detroit is in a rough spot right now. Their offense outside of the New England game has been very good. The defense is just terrible. A really nice situation for Dak to come back in. What do you got for me, Zach, for this one?
I have Dallas winning 24-23.
Ooh, okay.
I don't think it's as high scoring as everybody thinks. And I think that Detroit, with Aaron Glenn, right? That's defensive coordinator.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. He is. Look, we all watched Hard Knocks. We saw the emotion and the passion in the Detroit locker room. They're fired up as anything, and it's so frustrating because again, it's another season of one possession losses. They're all one possession losses. It's the shaking the dust out of the pants, and it sucks because we all want to see Detroit do well. I think there's going to be a week in between when Dak returns. I think the offense is going to be fine today, and 24 points is a fine output. It's a fine NFL output. I just don't think they're going to go like nuclear and do the Seattle 40 points. Like I don't think that happens today. And Ezekiel Elliott still, I mean, like I said, he played really well last week, but that was, I think, his best performance so far this year, by far. I need more from him before I'm like, okay, yeah. Let's Dallas is going right now. The NFC is Philadelphia, San Francisco for me.
What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, I actually, after hearing Zach talk about it, I changed my score a little bit. I had it higher scoring, and then I looked at the over under being 49, and I'm like, you know what, he might be onto something here. So I still have the game going over, but I have Dallas winning 32-27. A lot of my original thoughts still stand after the score correction, but I just think that the Dallas offense has clicked in terms of the run game. They're adding the quarterback. I already kind of talked about how I think that this could take this offense to the next level. You have Michael Gallup healthy after, coming back off that ACL. You have Dalton Schultz returning. You have both your running backs healthy. You have CeeDee Lamb, obviously, and a really just bad Detroit defense. The worst in the league. Like I said, they've allowed the most points in the league despite being on bye last week. And then on the Lions side, they do have the players. DeAndre Swift is out, which hurts, but Jamal Williams can punch it in, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is back. So expect good things out of him. They will be able to, like, maybe some garbage time points get there to the 27 mark, but I do have Dallas winning this.
So I have Dallas winning 28-17. I think that Detroit's offense is going to struggle against Dallas's defense right now. I think that they're playing very well overall. I just don't think that Detroit's offense is all together right now. Obviously, they're still missing Swift. I think Goff is just probably not going to play that well against the team with the corners, like especially Diggs. I think it's going to be very hard to get the ball outside. St. Brown might have a pretty big day just being an inside receiver, but I don't think anyone outside is going to make a huge difference. I think that Dallas's offense looks better than it has all year just because Dak's back in there. And like you said, guys are healthy, but it's not going to be anything too spectacular. I think it's going to be something like 28-10 going in the fourth quarter. Lions pick up a touchdown to make it look a little better. And that's kind of, they just get out of there with a win. But I also have for that game too, I wanted to talk about this. You talked about Elliott last week having the best game of the season so far for him. The fact that it was in a losing effort and the fact that he just doesn't impact the game from a passing perspective either. I want to see Pollard and Dak become the backfield duo more and more. I really think that's going to be important the rest of the season. So I wanted to throw that out there because I've been pounding the table for years for that.
Put Zeke as your third down option. I know you have all this money, but he is your power runner. Use him as a power runner.
He needs to be the closer, guys. So yeah,
like it's just the way that they run the offense doesn't, and that's the one thing that is my biggest concern is we're talking about Mike McCarthy.
Yeah,
as much as we're talking about the Detroit Lions, Mike McCarthy can just as easily mess this up as well.
Right, absolutely. So let's go through a couple of these games real quick here, guys. So Atlanta at Cincinnati. I'll start with you, Zach. I know you had an interesting take on this before.
Cincinnati will win the game 27-24. But Atlanta is against the spread champions this season. They are 6-0. I don't expect that to change. They play a very, very, very interesting brand of football right now. Joe Burrow and the wide receivers are going to feast on the secondary outside of whoever AJ Terrell is guarding. But yeah, they're going to put up points. They put up points last week. They're going to put up points this week.
All right, what do you think, Tony? Yeah, what do you think, Tony?
I'm in alignment with that, almost the exact same score. I've got Cincinnati winning 27-23. I really wanted to pull the trigger on Atlanta winning because that run game can do damage, and their defense isn't as terrible as it could be with the players that they have. But I do think all the receivers being healthy for Joe Burrow, they've started to figure out the run game. I think they're going to be able to pull it out.
I think I agree with Cincy winning with you guys. I do think it's 24-20 is going to be the score for that one. I think it's going to be relatively low scoring. I think it's not going to be as explosive for the Bengals as it probably could be, but they've kind of figured things out a little bit, and they're going to be healthy for this game in the receiving core, so they'll end up getting it done. But Atlanta is against the spread king for sure. I think they'll manage to keep that close. Cleveland at Baltimore. I just feel like for this game, both of these teams are in a rough spot, I will say. So it's kind of hard to determine who has the edge, in my opinion. But what do you think here for this game, Tony?
Yeah, I think this is the game where Baltimore gets back on track. The Browns' run defense has been pretty darn terrible. I know J.K. Dobbins just went on to IR, but Gus Edwards is back, and you have Lamar Jackson at quarterback. So I have them winning 34-17. Actually, this is their get-right game. There's going to be a lot of hype for the Ravens after this one.
Yeah. Look, what does Cleveland excel at? Running the football. What are the Ravens actually good at defending? Running the football. Like they will actually be able to stop the Cleveland Browns' best asset, and we just watched the Patriots out the Browns last week. Jacoby, look, this is not a disrespect to Jacoby Brissett. He is backup. It's been too many games at this point. I think enough teams have seen the backup game to where once you get past 2 or 3, this is why you're the backup. So I have the Ravens winning 31-13. Lamar Jackson has another MVP like performance that we've been so used to him having. They get back on track. They take over first overall in the well, I would say they take first overall in the AFC North, but they would technically be tied with the Bengals. I don't know where
they do have the head up win, so they
have the head up. Okay, so they would take over. But they'd still be tied if Atlanta's able to upset. Hey, then they take over first overall. No, off rip. But it'll be interesting what happens. But yeah, Baltimore definitely. I think they pound Cleveland in the dirt.
I actually have a 28-21 Baltimore. I think that the game is going to be pretty close. I just don't trust either of these defenses to not give up a decent amount of points right now, honestly. And I actually think with Baltimore, they're going to look better on offense than they have the past few weeks just because they can run the ball against this team. But I think Cleveland can keep it at least relatively close. Maybe it's more of at the end of the game they get closer and then they just can't finish comeback. But I'm not going to be surprised if it's relatively close right now. So, and I have for the next game here we got the Jets at Denver. Oh God. Yeah, I mean, Russ is out. Does that matter that much? Probably not. What do you think, Zach? I don't even know.
Denver 20, New York 17.
Ooh, okay.
This is not the first time the Jets have played Brett Rypien. And he took him down last time. He takes him down again. I think this is I said this earlier when we talked about the Giants game. This is going to be a rough day in New York. If you're a Bills fan, enjoy the fact that you don't play this week and you get to win next week and get them back on track. But look, it has been a magical, mystical start in New York City this year. These are two overachieving teams. It's been fantastic to watch. I don't trust Zach Wilson yet. And that Denver, as much as the offense is bad, the defense has been keeping them in every week. Like, despite what I don't think it was as close last week. I'm trying to remember. But look, Denver gets the win. I've put money down on the money line, so I'm calling it.
What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, I thought I was going to be the one with the bold prediction saying that Denver still wins this thing, but apparently I'm on the same page as Zach once again. I have Denver winning 17-13 though, so a bit more low scoring. I think New York has had success through running the ball. They don't have success passing the ball with Zach Wilson. He's actually pissed off a few of their receivers just because he's not very good at quarterbacking. But Brett Rypien, somehow I think this offense looks better than it did with Russ just because he doesn't have it in his head that he's a god. He's just going to do what is asked of him, and that's going to make things better. So they're going to get 17 points, beating Russell Wilson's usual score of 16, and the Jets it's a really good defense to play against, and it's going to be tough for them.
So I actually do have the Jets winning 20-14. I think that Denver just does not have the pieces right now on offense, especially with quarterback situation. I know that Wilson's already not playing well, but Rypien, I can't imagine he's going to make any sort of gigantic difference in a positive direction. I think the Jets defense is playing well enough right now where even though Wilson isn't exactly playing the best football, he's playing better than he has in the past, and the run game is really getting going. I think they can control the game, get about that 20-ish point mark, and that Denver just can't quite get to that 20-point mark, especially considering they couldn't do it, even with, again, a limited Russell Wilson compared to what we're used to, but still Russell Wilson. So moving on with Houston at Las Vegas. Houston's just in a rough spot right now. Vegas really badly needs a big win. I kind of feel like I know where we're all going to go with this one, but what do you think, Zach?
Las Vegas 28, Houston 17. They need to get it back. And they're at home. Derek Carr comes back into it. Devontae Adams gets some yards. I don't think there's much as we talked about earlier with the the Tampa Bay Carolina game. If you can go to a nice orchard, go to a park. If you intend to watch this game, you might be better off.
What do you think, Tony?
Yeah, complete agreement. It's not going to be that great. I have the Raiders winning 31-20. Both teams coming off of bye. I think Josh Jacobs is going to eat against a really bad run D.
For me, I actually had the same score as you, Zach, 28-17, Las Vegas. So,
That's why you looked at me
yes,
like that.
I was like,
Okay. I
huh,
was like,
yeah.
huh, wait.
Did you? Yeah, I was like, oh, he's going to think I'm thinking the other way
I
now.
was like, wait.
Yeah,
Did
Las
you like
Vegas
do it in
gets
my?
it done. Yeah, Las Vegas gets it done. I don't think the Houston's ready to compete at all yet. I like a lot of the young players they brought in the draft this year, but they're just kind of the future while the rest of the team has to catch up. So, moving on to Seattle at LA, I think that this is going to be one of the funner games of the week with both these teams, especially Seattle playing the way they have so far on offense this year. What do you got for me, Tony?
I think this is, like you said, going to be a very fun game. Probably the one worth watching. I have the Chargers winning 32-28. And it's just because they're just a better quarterback. The team's going to figure it out against a bad defense, but it's going to be a lot of points. Kenneth Walker, fire him up in fantasy.
For sure. What do you think, Zach?
Yeah. So I guess the only difference between your game and my game, Tony, is that the Chargers don't get that final drive to get the field goal to win because I have Seattle winning 28-27. I think that it's like a 21-20 game going into the fourth quarter. The Chargers score a touchdown, and then Geno Smith works and continues to make Pete Carroll feel like the smartest man in the world for saying, hey, we had a franchise quarterback, but I want to run the dang football. Give me Kenneth Walker. But yeah, I think Seattle is going to make the playoffs. I think that they're going to be able to pull everything together and figure it out to where Geno Smith's the opposite when we talk about those game managers, where he's a game manager, but he can actually make things happen. You don't have a Teddy Bridgewater or Jacoby Brissett or something like that in there. You've got from what we have seen so far, a bona fide starter. Is he a Justin Herbert? No, but this is also the Los Angeles Chargers.
Very fair. So I do have LA pulling out 31-28, but I do think that it's going to be very close. I wouldn't be surprised if Seattle wins this game. LA is dealing with a lot of injuries on defense and offense, realistically. The defense could finally have a decent game and kind of make this not nearly as explosive, I think. But I do think ultimately the Chargers can pull it out. They still have the better quarterback, and I think overall the better team. Just with the way that their defense is playing and everything else, it kind of makes this a closer score than it probably should be. Moving past, we're going to talk about the next game that would come up here in a minute because that's going to be our game of the week. But moving to the Sunday night game, Pitt at Miami. I'm not particularly excited for this one, obviously. So if you can see behind me, and Zach probably is looking at me like, yeah, you shouldn't be excited. But let's go to Tony first. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, so my score is very contingent on Kenny Pickett playing, which I don't know if that's okay.
He's
then
been cleared. He's 100% playing. Yeah.
Then I feel good
that
about
could be
my
a
score
whole
prediction.
nother section we could have done at the beginning, but we don't need to touch on that.
Yeah. So I've got Miami winning 29-24. Like I said in our first segment, I do expect Tua's return to the offense to just really open things up, make it more explosive, really take advantage of those weapons that they have. But their defense still is kind of not the best defense out there. They struggle. And I think Kenny Pickett coming back this time, he wants to prove that Mitch Trubisky coming in for relief of him doesn't matter because he's still the guy. So he'll be able to put up some points.
What do you think, Zach?
So I have Miami winning 31-17. Now I want it to be known that I actually have money on Pittsburgh to win or not win to cover the spread. Because I definitely think that's a possibility. The defense, I think the problem that the defense has had this year for Miami is that they end up being on the field for too long of drives and then don't get any sort of rest in the middle. That's exactly what we saw against the Jets. Exactly what we saw against Minnesota at the end last week. Even though they were able to salvage it at the end, like it got weird. Tua is the driver of this offense. It's what they've been made. This is why I love the fact that from day one, Mike McDaniel has said, yes, I am here to coach Tua. Let's build around the system. And it's worked, and we're going to see what happens. However, Kenny Pickett is doing some things, some good things. And I don't think it's necessarily like that's where we went back to last week. Pittsburgh is not the worst team in the league. They might be bottom 10, but I don't like. I wouldn't even put them in bottom 5 right now. There's just a few pieces that are missing right now. That just like if they were there, it would be a completely different story that we were talking about this season.
Yeah, for me, I do have Miami winning 27-20. I think that right now it's just a lot to ask of this team to score more than 20 points, the way that the offense is being run and the fact that they have a rookie quarterback. The run game isn't working. The blocking is actually much better than we expected, but it doesn't matter because the play design is awful and they can't get the ball down the field at all in any way. So I have them getting that 20-point mark just barely, but I think Miami's just going to be able to do too much with their receivers. It's going to be hard unless they get a bunch of turnovers, which, last time we saw Tua, he was chucking it up a little bit, but I don't expect him to do that against this defense with Minka back there now healthy. So definitely give the edge to Miami here.
I do have a Minka Fitzpatrick jersey in my closet.
Break it out for that. No.
Yeah, seriously.
So the last game we're talking about before we get to our game of the week is one that's certainly not the game of the week. Chicago at New England. There's a score I wanted to put, but I didn't. But we'll get to it in a minute. What do you have for me, Tony, for this game?
So I think we all saw that in Bill Belichick's press conference, he spoke for like 7 minutes about how good the Bears are. That's a damn death sentence. Whenever he does that is the most backhanded shit you could do. Like, he's just like, yeah, no, these guys are great. And then he destroys them. So they're going to win 42-14. They're going to run all over him.
Wow.
It's going to be brutal. It's going to be a bloodbath. It's going to be funny. Like, just funny because it's funny to watch teams get beat this bad.
Fair enough. What do you think, sir?
Man, okay, so my suspicion was just confirmed. Damian Harris is a full go, which is incredible after he was expected to miss multiple games. I don't know how that happened. I
saw Stevenson running down his running.
Oh
down
yeah, but I mean,
so.
even with Stevenson, I don't think he was ever in question to have that taken away. But man, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad because look, the Bears outside of Justin Fields being able to rush a few times and David Montgomery and Khalil Herbert randomly popping off big runs, there's nothing. There's nothing. And as depressing as that is, it's the truth. So New England, is Mac Jones playing?
I don't know if it matters, but I haven't checked.
I know. I think it does. I actually think it does because I'm totally team Bailey Zappi over Mac Jones. I think I think it gives them a better opportunity to win games personally. Because I think I actually think Belichick trusts Zappi's arm more than Mac Jones's arm. But that's just me.
For me, like, I have it 24-10. But I wanted to say
24-13.
I wanted 24-0 is what I wanted to put just for the jokes. Cause like you already mentioned it, Tony, the fact that Belichick talked that much about the Bears means that he's been in the lab trying to find a way to blank them. Like, he's like, I wanted the second shutout this season against a team in the NFC North. Like, I want to do it. And I think he very well could do it. I think it's very possible. Fields right now, like, he has nothing going for him. He's not playing well individually. We've talked about this in the past, but the guy has absolutely zero chance to succeed. None. Unless, like you said, the Khalil Herbert has a 60-yard run, which then they just get a field goal out of because they can't score in the red zone. Yep. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, there's nothing that you can point to and go, yeah, this could get good at some point. No, the pass block is terrible. The run blocking is good whenever, like, half the time. And when it is, it's great. Like, it's just, you can't expect anything. And I think New England could very easily keep them under 10 points, even though I gave them 10 points.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't even think I can think of a quarterback that, like, looking at this starting roster on offense, that you could just drop in this team and be like, yeah, they'll be fine.
Yeah. Like, being a league average offense, I think is basically
Darnell
impossible.
Mooney,
Equinemius St. Brown,
Equinemius St. Brown, and Dante Pettis. That's your starting.
And ironically, Dante Pettis has like some of the biggest plays for them.
Exactly. That's where we are.
Yeah. But don't want to dwell on that one too much. Let's get into our last game before we get out of here. Make sure everybody can get out of here before 1:00. So we have Kansas City at San Francisco. The debut of Christian McCaffrey, probably briefly, but he's going to play. It looks like a little bit. What do you guys have for the winner on this one? Let's go with Zach here.
I have Kansas City winning, and this is solely contingent on the fact that, I mean, San Francisco's defense is ailing. I don't think that they do a standard Kansas City goes in and imposes their will. I have it 27-17 Kansas City. But look, there's not much you can do with what I think it was like 13. And it wasn't 13. You can't have 13 starters. But it was like like almost like 70 to 80% of the defense of the starting defense was out. There's not much you can do in the NFL at that point. And we always say next man up and all that stuff, but like
that's a little different.
That's completely different. It's just not a possibility. You're trying to replace way too many all pros. You're trying to replace way too many depth players because the depth players can play behind the all pro players and do well. So it's going to be bad. Let me see. I'm pulling it up right now. You've got Eric Armstead's out. Charvarius Ward is questionable. Hufanga is questionable. But you're still without Kinlaw. You're still without Maurice Hurst. You're still without Jordan Willis. Emmanuel Mosley's out. Jason Verrett is actually out as well. Kalia Davis is out. Like, there's just so much. The only injury on the offense is the one thing that everybody was hoping to see, and that was Trey Lance. And that's what's so messed up for San Francisco is like they have all this stuff, and you want to see all these cool things. And I don't know what voodoo they have done or where they have built the stadium or what has happened because they just can't get this off of their back.
What do you think, Tony?
So you listed the injury report there. I have that up and ready. That was going to be like my positives talking point for the 49ers.
They have more back than they should.
Yeah. So my initial instinct was, okay, KC's winning this game by a lot. Then I looked more into it and I thought, okay, this is going to be pretty darn close. And now looking even deeper into it, I think, so I'll go on a limb here and say, if Talanoa Hufanga and Charvarius Ward are both active, I think the 49ers win this game. Their defensive line has this superior advantage over it's a good offensive line, but it's very beatable on the edges. We saw what Von Miller did to them last week. I think this defense can give Patrick Mahomes fits. And so Nick Bosa, Drake Jackson, and Samson Ebukam all back rushing off the edge. I think that's going to be a huge boost. I have Kansas City still winning 23-21, but I think it's going to be a dogfight. I think we are going to see some hard yards and hard touchdowns earned here. And like I said, if Talanoa Hufanga and Charvarius Ward are in, they're going to be able to man up on these KC receivers that aren't that great, and they're going to be able to really cause Patrick Mahomes some problems. So I'll say a win if they play, but otherwise it's 23-21 KC winning.
Yeah, I have 27-24 KC winning. I think it's going to be very close, pretty much regardless. I just don't see like they're going into San Francisco. Kansas City's offense is still not really quite where it needs to be. I think they still have some kinks to work out. And I think McCaffrey actually makes a pretty big difference in this game. I think he makes it close. I think they get in the red zone a couple of times, and he makes a couple of big plays for them, kind of gets them more points than they have been getting. But I do think KC ultimately pulls it out. They're still just the better team at this particular moment, at least. So, but that's going to wrap everything up for us, guys, this week. So I do want to thank everybody who did come in and join us watching today. So we're going to try to be back next week, of course, with the same crew. Hopefully we might have some more additions. We'll see. I'm going to see if I can get some more folks on from some different teams, talk about their teams a little bit. But that'll do it for us this week. And thank you all for watching.